Hello everyone. Let me know if the audio is good before I talk muted for 15 minutes as is tradition. As you can see, rumors of my untimely demise have been grossly exaggerated, although we'll see if we can get through this without fulfilling them. What are we doing today? Well, that is an excellent question. So apparently, well not apparently, I've seen little bits of it here and there, but Faraday has returned to YouTube. And this is just new levels of weird, so we're going to go through this. For anyone who's not familiar, Faraday Speaks, aka Caleb Kane, I think back in like 2016 or something, like around when Sargon was first getting big, is a younger fellow who got internet famous and actually got some news coverage for being ostensibly a former radical right-winger who converted to something not that. That's a bit exaggerated. As far as I can tell, he was just an ordinary conservative, but like sort of like Hunter Evelyn type. But he played that up pretty successfully. There was a lot of attention around that kind of thing at the time, and he managed to get a decent following. He's got like 21,000 subscribers now. This thing, however, has been ratioed to hell, and I've contributed to it because this is weird and pretentious and bad. And I have nothing against Caleb, but there's something like really off about this. So I'm going to try to be as generous as possible because, again, I have zero bad blood towards Caleb. I don't know him that well. We've interacted a few times. He's been friendly every single time. But that's what we're going to do. So, yeah. Let's do this. Well, let me know if the audio is good again. Oh, it was more recent. It was like 2018 or 2017. Okay, I thought it was longer than that, so he might be newer than I remember. He got attention coming out after the Christchurch shooting. Yes, okay, that's coming back to me now.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Faraday here.
That's really quiet. Let me turn this up a bit. Let's see. Let me know if this is too loud.
It has been almost 3 years since I uploaded my first video. Now in that time, I have worked professionally to counter violent extremism at a university, co-founded a website to tell the stories of those radicalized, and even operated a Discord server where I've attempted de-radicalization myself. Now, in that same time, I've abandoned all of those projects. I've experienced an intense mental breakdown, and I've even been homeless.
Oh, he's been homeless. That's new. Went from working at a university to being... What the hell happened there? Oh, sorry to hear that.
But I've also had a complete political transformation.
I can turn it up more? That's too quiet for you? I hate asking you guys if it's loud or not, because there's always one person who says everything is too quiet, and then everybody else piles in and says it's fine. Oh, but Katsuma Kyoto says it's too low, so that is legit. Oh, god damn it. Hang on, let's fix this.
And become a conservative.
It is legitimately just a super quiet video. Here, hang on, let's rewind it a little bit.
In time, I've abandoned all of those projects. I've experienced an intense mental breakdown, and I've even been homeless.
Here, we'll turn on the subtitles.
I've also had a complete political transformation and become a conservative. You see, I've been doing everything I can to understand radicalization. Why do people radicalize? What is it about them? About their environment? What even is radicalization? And throughout all these questions, I've learned many things, some inspiring, some very regretful. I've lost a lot of hope in terms of how I once viewed the problem. You see, at first, I thought the problem was one of information. I thought it was simply a propaganda issue. And that if we simply debated the ideas or removed them from the discourse, these harmful beliefs would just go away. Maybe if we alter the algorithms and create new narratives for people to find, they will come to them in a more humane way of seeing the world. and abandon all this bigotry and conspiracism. Then I went on to believe that it was a lack of community and material need, and that people need to find themselves in communion with others so that they can more easily raise their families without the stress of a life of not having enough. You know, if we just provide for these people their basic needs, they'd have no reason to radicalize in the first place. And after that, I started to wonder if the problem was even deeper.
So this is a this is an answer that seems to be implying he's abandoned. That supplying people with their basic needs will eliminate the hole in their hearts that makes them become radicalized to fill it somehow. So that's a little bit strange. I'm a little bit curious to see if he affirms that later, because that seems to me like unquestionable. Like it's a fairly obvious point. I think like the one the one consistent claim you see from people on the right is the breakdown of community, and that's the one claim they have that I think sticks. And a big part of that is that people are reduced to just a rat race of trying to meet ever increasing costs of living while they're becoming increasingly isolated from one another, and not as a function of culture so much as just the material conditions of living, and just the way cities are even made up. Like most of us, just because it's cheaper, end up renting out in suburbs, which these endless deserts of completely unsocial blocks of houses with nothing around them.
Spiritual and moral decay, product of an age where capitalism and modernity have hollowed us out and turned us into pleasure-seeking individuals who ignore what must be done and instead fall into what we can do for ourselves selfishly. And in the vacuum of this cold world, people want more. They reach out to old traditions and gods. They reach out to new age cults and political ideals. They reach out to something higher than themselves because they've been reduced to nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with viewing the problem through these lenses, but I've come to realize that the causes of radicalization are more fundamental, right in front of our eyes. You see, we're not living in a new time in history, just a different one. The era we find ourselves in has been here before. This aeon is not new.
It's new. That's wrong, and it is a new time in history. If it's a different time in history, it's a new one. That's kind of how that works, you know. But okay, so he's going to try to argue that there's some past precedent for our current condition. That strikes me as untenable. I'm curious how he's going to argue that.
And behind every major social and economic revolution in history, we've received a new piece of technology. What is that, you might ask? It's a new piece of social communications technology. And now, that societal cycle is repeating. You know, for example, leading up to the French Revolution, a new addition to the civilizational tech tree was added. Printing press. And this enabled people to communicate in ways which they never had access to before. And the petty elites at the time, the mercantile class, they took advantage of this moment. I mean, imagine yourself. You're sitting at the dinner table with the king, having a private dinner. You're sipping some wine. He's filling himself up with the delicacies of the day. And the night is going well when out of nowhere, he stands up and makes an announcement. And to your surprise, he proclaims that he's going to raise the taxes on all the merchants. Now you're furious. You've already had to bear the cost of this man. You see, last year, you lost 50% of your profits because of an economic recession. And why was there an economic recession? Because the king put his idiot son in charge of collecting taxes. And his son can't do math. And as a result, there was a disruption in the distribution chain, and a famine occurred. So you go to your friends at the market, and you convene in the taverns, and you hatch a plot. You say, this king, he can't be allowed to continue. And if I have to sit through one more dinner listening to him preach while he stuffs his fat face, and his princess sits there and talks about the welfare of the people while she eats cake, I'm going to lose my mind. So here's the plan. We're going to put our money together. We're going to buy a printing press. And then we're going to start releasing all his dirty secrets and flaws. And we're going to tell everyone how much he's been screwing them over. And so they started up their printing presses, and out they went. Red-pilled normies. In the 18th century...
No, that's wrong. That's very wrong. For a start, the printing press is around for hundreds of years before the French Revolution. The reason why this doesn't work in the case of France is because there was heavy censorship. It was only after the storming of the Bastille that you actually start to see like all these papers proliferate. And the the principal impetuses for the revolution weren't that. It certainly wasn't annoyed members of the Third Estate having dinner with the king. It was people starving. I'm ignoring the tech tree thing just because I think that's a silly illustration. Like he's trying to sound hip, which is whatever. It's dumb, but whatever. I don't like this. There's no such thing as cycles in history. That's silly, especially given again like we aren't. It's not like stuff is just repeating. It's related things. Like the printing press does have some relation to online media, but like that's development. That's not a return of something, right? I don't know. This isn't my area, but this just seems well, it's partially my area, but this just seems silly.
Steve Bannon is born. And it's not long after the social order is destroyed. The status quo is toppled, heads roll. And society radicalizes, and a new world is born.
Yeah, no, the French Revolution was not caused by the printing press. That's ridiculous.
But notice in that example, who benefited from this social radicalization?
That would be the French.
And keep that in mind as we go forward here. Now, the same could be argued during the age of television and radio. Whether it was the revolt against the modern world by the Nazis, put a radio in nearly every home, or even the civil rights speeches in America, which broadcast on every television nationwide. These new introductions of social communications technologies have revolutionized and galvanized the public throughout history and opened up their minds to new possibilities and new ideas, for better or for worse. But with each of these texts and potential for mass revolution has always come the possibility for control.
Again, this doesn't make sense. Like you have to have a mind to tune into these stations to begin with, right? Like these things don't radicalize people. What they do is they connect people and they coordinate them once they're already sort of on board. But these media things don't radicalize people at all. A major hole is that the world's first movable type printing technology for paper books was made of porcelain materials when it was invented around 1040 in China during the Northern Song Dynasty. Interesting. Although, a good point, Zanzi. When was the Chinese Revolution? It was a little after this. Yeah, everything. Not the head. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't good for the headless French, but for the French citizenry, it was a net positive overall historically. They were not doing well prior to the revolution, which is one of the reasons why there was one.
Now, again, to point back to the way that Goebbels and the Nazis leveraged their radios, or how other powerful regimes have controlled the papers and the press, these revolutions in the social mind are not always positive. Looking at the rise of political cults and the acts of terror that have spawned them, whether it be ISIS, insurrectionary, anarchists, or the alt-right, one can clearly see what I'm saying. But there is a more fundamental critique here. These texts we're now surrounded by, phones, internet, and social media.
He's saying text, it's saying texts in the subtitles, but he means TECHS, just to be clear.
Yeah. They've created a revolution unlike any other. More transformative than the agricultural, industrial, and all other revolutions combined.
No, I don't think I don't think the widespread use of social media was more revolutionary than the thing that actually made political communities start. Okay, so I guess like I'll try to be nice. My immediate thought here is like it can be comforting and it can feel good to think that like stuff that we're doing on this platform is so important that it can like manipulate people's souls and turn them into radicals or whatever. It really doesn't. What it does do is it allows people who find themselves unable to, get along with the people in their everyday life, substitute in people they meet virtually. And so it can stop people from, coming to terms with their environments and developing a healthy relationship with people who disagree with them on things. But we're just not that important at the end of the day. I think this kind of medium is very good for educating people who are already willing to listen. But in terms of radicalizing people, no, it doesn't de-radicalize people, not at all. Not even close. You're de-radicalized at the end of the day because there are things that you end up caring about more than the thing that you are radicalized to, and you realize that you don't want to bear the cost of that other thing for the sake of this political obsession you have. That's, at the end of the day, I think that's really all it is. I think people are radicalized because they want something, and they have to want something else more. I don't think it's just people are infected by these things. And that goes both ways. Now, he's using right-wing radicalization as an example of the kind of negative radicalization he thinks happened during the French Revolution. Okay. How does this feed into you being a conservative? Let's keep going.
They have changed how we think, act, and communicate as a species. And it is this transformation, I believe, that is at the root of all our problems. The technologies we have taken for granted and given so much of ourselves over to are now controlling us. Social media apps create these addictive environments using a combination of bright lights, colors, repetitive notifications, pornography, games, and personal aggrandizement.
Here's a little history lesson for you. So in ancient Athens, when it became democratic, they had to pay people to go home and do their chores. Like watch over the farm, watch over their household affairs, things like that, because they were addicted to political activity. Don't get me wrong, like there's a lot that is addictive about social media, and it can distract us from stuff that we need to do to stay healthy, but like I don't get what is the point here. We're not being controlled by it. We still have the choice. The fact that we like get a strong dopamine rush and are constantly coming back, that doesn't mean we're slaves to it. It might just be that we enjoy it too much. I don't know. Would you say the media can aid in radicalization? I mean, like, again, if you're already of a disposition that you are just going to believe any narrative that a particular source gives you uncritically, what does it even mean to be radicalized further at that point, right? Like, by radicalization, do we mean just that we take part in big bad political stuff, or do we mean that the person is sort of tuned to be susceptible to a certain kind of activity that is unreasonable and unable to, get on with other people?
To hypnotize and control us. We are kept trapped in these platforms, always logged on, and always a touch away. These apps keep us together, but isolated. We are expected to constantly look and react. We never even get a chance to reflect on what we see because the discourse moves too fast.
Well, just don't keep up with the discourse, right? Like, I don't. I'm happy as a clam. I don't know, like, are we expected to? I think someone like Vosh's position or Destiny's position, like it's their job to constantly keep their finger and tapping in time with the pulse of whatever's trending on Twitter or something. But we don't have to do that. There's nothing, like there are people who are successful even on these platforms who don't do that. Philosophy Tube doesn't do that. Cuck Philosophy doesn't do that. Well, let's think of a non-philosophy example. Caspian Report doesn't do that. Well, they sort of do that, but they're better than that. I do think he's spot on here, but he doesn't weave it into his argument effectively. I mean, he's not wrong when he's talking about content creators, right? I just don't think that it's necessarily the case that it's actually in any way placed, there's no incumbency placed upon us to keep up with these things. We are allowed, and most of us still do, just dip in occasionally, consider it, and move on, right? I don't see how you can disagree with how, yes, the unhealthy environment we're in now, along with the breakdown of community, happy as a clam, law. I don't disagree with that necessarily. I'm just saying, like, I don't see this inevitable connection between the technology and that. And more to the point, like, again, this is supposed to feed into an argument for being conservative. I'm not seeing it so far, but we'll see. You watch Caspian Report based. I like Caspian Report sometimes. I do find they tend to incorporate some things uncritically. they're a very slick presentation, but you do need to be careful with them because they do some loose. They do play fast and loose sometimes. In particular, final note on Caspian Report before we move on. I think that their sort of naive acceptance of the Allison's Thucydides trap concept is mistaken.
We have been reduced to less than animals. We have been turned into vessels to be manipulated by an attention economy, mining our minds for data to fuel the machines that enslave us. We can no longer even distinguish reality from the hyper-reality manufactured by these machines. And for those of us engaged in digital politics, we all fight and we argue, believing we have taken the red pill, but we are still trapped in the same matrix. And while we have been captured, the world around us falls apart. And we all feel it. And the things we think have freed us have enslaved us. You're not free if your mind is consumed by pornography and instant gratification. You're a trained rat in a maze. And you're not free if you think that the conspiracies you consume offer some hidden knowledge. You're simply mesmerized by the story that's been sold to you by some cult guru. And now, like the porn-addicted serf, you're dominated by your master. You haven't broken free. You've gone back in. The exit is a sign leading back to the entrance. And this is why now you may, in a sense...
Yeah, I can't turn it up any louder than this. It is legitimately just a super quiet video. I actually have it at maximum right now. I don't know why it's so quiet. But...
Call me a conservative of sorts. Because as we accelerate into this brave new world, I can't help but shudder and fear what's to come. Because machines cannot revolt. Machines don't take back their freedoms. Machines simply comply and break down. In this way, these political cults and subcultures we engage in, whether it be the debate we engage in on the left, whether it be the conspiracy crafting we engage in on the right, however you want to describe it, it's the exact opposite of radicalization. It's the exact opposite of being a radical, which means to get to the root of something. Instead, we are trapped in a self-soothing coping mechanism with algorithmic control. I don't want a life of pleasure compliance destined for the scrap heap. I want freedom. I want life. I want to be free of the chains I've put on myself so that I can clearly see the chains put on me by others. But these devices...
I don't think radical means to get at the root of something. I think radical means that you're interrogating your situation and your institutions and things like that at like an existential level. Like not this, like the difference between a radical and a reformist is that a reformist works within the system to attain an end they want. A radical wants the entire system to be completely restructured or changed or gone. It's a critical lens that can include that, yeah. Although you don't necessarily need to be critical to be radical.
Being always plugged in, ready to consume the next hot take, and conforming to the political zeitgeist of whatever's favored in an algorithm or by the hegemonies or false revolutionaries of the day want me to feel. I would like to share a revelation I have made while spending time in these online subcultures.
I thought he said media radicalizes people, now he says it controls us through soothing dopamine loops. Yeah, again, like it's a weird video. There's not really a coherent line of thinking here. It's kind of hypnotic by itself, isn't it? Like he's just kind of... Anyways, gonna dip out. You and Vosh would do so much good if you told how you guys got bullied and retreated to other things like books in your case. No person sounds like you unless you retreated to books. I mean, you got me. I do read a lot of books. I'll recover from that someday, I'm sure.
You see, it came to me when I was classifying the various political cults online.
Oh, don't quote Agent Smith.
These algorithms and apps aren't actually machines at all. These social media environments don't act like machines. Machines are made to serve humans, to turn off we are done finding value in them, to remain separate from us. But these devices do not do that. They're always turned on, embedded into every aspect of our life, making us reliant to them. They influence our brains on an instinctive level, hijacking our reward system. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern as these technologies. Do you know what that is?
A virus.
Parasite. These technologies are a disease, cancer of this planet, plague. You see, I believe that these new media technologies algorithmically define our reality, the misery.
Okay, so there's actually a good point here, and this is, fittingly enough, it's what I've been sort of absorbed in for the last month or so. I've been rereading Rousseau. That's Rousseau's point, is that our technological developments and our social developments and all these different things, they create new dependencies on these new developments so that what we find necessary to live changes over time, and that has irrevocable changes on our social relations and things like that. So this is actually, again, fairly on point. Minus the cringe, but you can't go back. So he's a conservative of sorts, let's be fair. What's he going to say we should do about this?
Suffering. An imperfect world that keeps us in fear, that our cerebrum cannot wake up from. This is why the psychotic grid we exist in is now redesigning the future of our reality. And I say our reality because now that we've given our agency over to the algorithm,
oh my God,
it really has become their reality.
Stop with the Matrix thing.
That's what it's all about. Evolution. Evolution in a new era. Era of the machines. This new reality, this new normal, it's numbing, nauseating. It's clouding my view. I'm always with others, but I am always alone. I hate this place, this zoo, this prison.
Oh,
this
please stop.
reality, whatever you want to call it. I can't stand it any longer. It's the smell.
No, it's not the smell. Can you imagine what a medieval town would have smelled like?
I feel saturated by it. I can taste its stench. And every time I do, I feel like I've been somehow affected by it. It's repulsive.
Please stop.
I must get out of this place. I must get free. Because this constant emotional need to consume information and images, I never get to think. So I fight. But why? Why? Why do I do it? Why try? Why keep fighting? Do I believe I'm fighting for something?
Oh my God, stop quoting agent. Okay, you're allowed to think, Caleb. No one's stopping you from thinking. Is Faraday going to recommend we do the Butlerian Jihad from Dune or what? We have time and access to information. We can now do with that what we like. The answer to this is to turn off your computer, set schedules, go outside, and read books and talk to people. The problem he's talking about is a lot more. It's a lot more potent in the context of, especially with like recent isolation due to COVID lockdowns. But like, I don't know, and I don't know why he's like contorting it to fit into like the Agent Smith speeches. It's just kind of weird. Like, what is the argument here in favor of the value of being bored? Like, there's something kind of juvenile about this. Like, I understand, like, there are unhealthy tendencies that we sort of gravitate towards because we have all this information in front of us. We have all this entertainment at our fingertips at all times. And it can be incredibly distracting and exhausting, but we are free to not do that. Like, you can just put it down. That's a thing you can do. Like, what's worse is being conditioned as we are to know about what things can be like when we have all of this information at our fingertips, when we're able to know things quickly, and to communicate quickly across vast distances. To go back from that is physically painful. We don't want to do that, and nor is there any particular reason why we should want to do that. There's a lot of bad stuff going on that we are only able to respond to because we have these engines. Sounds like it's going down some kind of Landian neo-reactionary path. I have no idea. Although the distributist apparently likes this. I don't know what he's doing. I just don't know. I have some speculations. I'll save them for the end, but I don't know what this is.
More than just survival? Can I explain what it is? Do I even know? Is it freedom or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions. Vagaries of perception. That's what the science and the algorithms tell me. Temporary constructs of a feeble human mind, trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them is artificial.
Okay, Smith isn't talking about cell phones and social media. He's talking about fictions like, not fictions, but he's talking about things like the stuff that gives ultimate meaning or whatever to human endeavor. Well before that, like he's talking about things like love, for example, or the idea of love as being some cosmically important thing.
As the algorithms themselves. You know, sometimes I think you can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. So then, why?
Oh my God!
Why
stop.
do I persist? Do you know what I say? And those thoughts linger in my head.
Oh no! No, you don't. Thanks, Deepak. Oh, is he gonna let him punch him now? He's gonna let him punch him now. Oh my God. Oh.
I choose to think
Caleb,
for myself
why?
and to live myself instead of letting a machine think and live for me.
Bless you for posting that on YouTube.
I think you want to think and live for yourself too. So let's leave the limited hangout of the digital jungle of recommendation systems and cults of personality. And let's go back to our human roots. Let's abandon our cultural and political psychoses, which have been induced by the society of control. To do this, we're going to need to learn and unlearn some things. So that is why I've returned to YouTube to release my new show, This Limited Hangout, where I will explore these topics and search for the root of what it means to be human and how this reality is changing around us, create this spectacular matrix. If you resonate with what I've said here, then come.
Wait a minute. Hang on a sec. Let me check something quickly. Sorry, just something occurred to me. Okay, so... Oh, weird. Okay. Never mind. Alright. False alarm. I was surprised it was 18 minutes. I could have sworn it was like 20 or something minutes before. Weird.
Come with me on that journey. Spit out that red pill. And let's see just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Here it is.
Okay, so... so we're all glued to social media. It's really bad for us. We need to go out and touch grass. By the way, here's my new show. And I'm, putting my face and selling my personality. This is... This isn't it, Caleb. He said something weird earlier, too. Like, he said, like, revolt against... What was the... Let me go back. I think it was the Nazi part.
has always come the possibility for control. Now, again, to point back to the way that Goebbels and the Nazis leveraged their radios, or how other powerful regimes have controlled the papers and the press, these revolutions in the social mind are not always positive. Looking at the rise of political cults and the acts of terror that have spawned them, whether it be ISIS, insurrectionary anarchists, or the alt-right, one can clearly see what I'm saying. But there is a more fundamental critique here. These
Okay, hang on.
Then I went on to believe that it was lack.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what this is. Like, it's just weird. It's weird and pretentious. I don't know why he's identifying as conservative. There was no content here that would make one want to identify as a conservative. I mean, first of all, a conservative with respect to what? Like, there's a critique of capital you could derive from this. That wouldn't make you a conservative, though. Like, is the title clickbait, or is whose title clickbait? Mine? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he says he's a conservative, apparently. I don't know what that means. Like, the upshot of this seems to be, like, being addicted to social media is unhealthy. He seems to waffle between social media, or the printing press, I suppose, leads to radicalization, but also that it makes us non-radical. Mind you, are not the one who uses this way to maximize his reach and brand his content. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, I have some speculations here, and they're not flattering. And I'm not sure if I should air them. Again, like, I think it all goes back to the pretty tenuous thing that was the backbone of his platform early on. He really wanted to fill the niche of being an ex-conservative who had some kind of inside knowledge as to how radicalization takes place. And he just wasn't that. And he really had to push that a lot. And he seemed to be super keen to just get involved in people as that character. And then various projects just fell apart as, I guess, people didn't get along, or they failed to monetize effectively or something. It just failed to become something sustainable over time. Most recently, he canceled his YouTube channel and started to work with a university group. I have no idea what happened with that, but apparently he left. My immediate impulse is to think, or my immediate intuition is that he probably just didn't have a lot to offer. Because this isn't really his forte ultimately. Like, he's a charismatic speaker, not necessarily in this, but he's generally very, very good at talking to people. He could easily pull off the Hunter Avalon thing, but I think what he's realized is that, and I think this is sort of pushed by desperation, all of a sudden, after dropping the university project, apparently having some kind of breakdown, which I would bet is related to the fact that he was in financial straits. He said at the beginning of this video that he was homeless. That'll do stuff to you. I think he's hoping that a rebrand and just sort of appealing to a different audience, being like the prodigal son returning or something, will somehow launch his YouTube career or whatever. That's the only thing I can that's the only thing I can guess at here that makes sense. The alternative is just that he actually thinks this is brilliant, and I don't know which is worse, frankly. His de-radicalization Discord was really bad. They rarely could identify fascist radicals from my experience. Really? So you think this might be a grift? Well, let's think about this for a second. He just went on about how, like, we're being glued to our screens, being radicalized, or rather, neutered of our capacity for radicalization because of our relationships with internet personalities. And then he uses this to launch his new show on YouTube. Conspicuously, immediately after a previous project falling apart and him finding himself in dire need of a stable income, right? And, like, I don't begrudge him that. That's a bad place to be in, but I don't know what he's doing. Like, this guy used to host, like, you know that Vosh versus Dankula debate that's featured in the Doomer Politics video and my responses to it? He hosted that. those are big ticket characters. Like he had an in. And again, I have nothing against Faraday Speaks, but like what the hell is this? It doesn't add up logically. Also, like, I don't like his responses here. So in the comments down here. So like, I'd so welcome back, but this person is gone. Oh, 10 likes. Always changing. Like, he's dismissive of critics. There was another one here. Oh, it's... sorry, but either Faraday has lost the plot or I have. Either way, I'm bailing. Then he says later. Like, it's... And Dave's happy. I don't know. This is... It didn't make any sense. There were, like, bits that could be sort of salvaged into an actual critique of contemporary conditions and the way in which we receive information. Like, there's valid stuff there. But... He also said in this video that ideology is a cope but identifies as a conservative. I don't know what identifying as conservative means. What is he conserving? Like, what is the switch here? The only thing that saying he identifies as a conservative achieves is signaling to people on the right that I'm your man. That's it. There's no content there. He doesn't say, like, I'm a conservative, I think we need to go back to this, or I think we need to regulate this, or I think we need to put a stop on just our reckless enmeshment in, like, social media and things like that. No. He says he's a conservative and then markets his new show. This is entirely branding. He does everything that he complains of at the end of this video. So, if it's a grift, it's a really stupid one, alienating his own audience. His own audience might not pay the dividends, assuming he's cynical. Like, again, if he's been at this for a few years. He's at 21,000 subscribers, right? Right-wing channels much younger than him are doing a lot better. Like Keith Wood's doing much better. Distributus is older, but he's doing much better. And they're getting money for precisely the reasons that he talks about here. And so I really wonder, like, why signal that you're conservative? What is that achieving? Why tout, like, these deep investigations into radicalization that you've done when they amount ultimately to, I claim that I was, like, de-radicalized from some insane right-wing cult when really I was like a normal conservative, and I saw an opportunity as there started to be like this increasing anti-SJW craze going on in the media. And incidentally, like, when he started up, the political right was sort of on the rise, or at least was visually on the rise, not optically on the rise. Is he simply capitalizing on an already held conservatism for the grift? Well, maybe, but if it's an already held conservatism, then his position prior to this was also a grift. So, Zanzi, is it to distance himself from BreadTube, a demographic he's loosely associated with because of his escaping the pipeline video? I haven't... Escaping the pipeline? Let's take a look at that. I haven't seen an escaping the pipeline video. What is this? Where do you see an escaping the pipeline video? Here, let me find this quickly. Escaping the pipeline. Oh, this is an old one. This is my descent into the alt-right pipeline. This is only 2 years ago, really? Oh, I guess he said that his videos were he's only started posting videos at 3 years.
Community.
I don't know. I just don't know what to make. That's his debut video? Okay. I just don't know what to make of this. This is just really strange. Zanzi, I see that he's actually streaming the conversation that you took part in now. We're going to cover that tomorrow. Do you mind if I zip over and look at that briefly? I just want to like get a taste of it, and we can go over it in depth later. Cuz I want to see some logo Daedalus there. Watch something else. This is stupid. I agree. Well, it's over, so we're done watching this. Okay. Well, let's actually take a look. I'm going to talk with Zanzi about this in depth tomorrow, but I just want to see what this is like. This is premiering, so I even think we can rewind. So this is a conversation that Zanzi took part in with Logo Daedalus, J-Reg, I don't know how he got him, and this guy here at the bottom with the hat.
You were going to be killed by the mob. That like this is you were like totally trying to destroy the idol. You're going into people's houses, you're taking their idols and you're smashing them. They're not going to like that. They're not going to be happy with you, but you're getting them out of hell.
Okay, so maybe I've got the wrong frame here, but you know, from what you're describing to me, that sounds like the physical process. Okay, we go into the zoo, smash the locks. Obviously, we're not describing utopian millenarian day here. But we over time we smash the locks. But then we open the door and the animals, you know,
there's no doors.
Well,
that's what I'm saying, man.
Okay, but
people went in on their own accord. They
but we tell them
they put themselves in it.
But then how do you? But
you have to get them.
You have to get
them. They can leave.
You have to, yeah. But that's a mindset shift, and so I'm asking.
Exactly.
I guess what I'm getting at is how do we approach a framework that gets people out of this deep inception level?
This is also too quiet. I don't know what to tell you. Turn up your speakers. This is as loud as it can get. It's just he has a quiet channel. I don't know why.
Layer, dream state. How do we like turn on that music, kick them in the bathtub, and get them to come up those layers and get back to base reality? Because we are just so deep down in this type of reality of illusion, and it seems like we don't have. You know, you talk to communists or you talk to fascists, and well, we'll just give them the right ideology. We give them the right ideology, and it'll wake them up. We tell the right story, and it wakes them up. And I'm so soured on that. But
that's not what communists say, generally speaking. That's the whole point of direct action, right? If it was just a matter of spreading the ideology.
But there has to be a framework shift.
And any communist worth their salt will tell you that the whole point is to deconstruct that ideology. It's a false consciousness.
Right.
The whole point is giving people an authentic experience of their actual existence and understand what their relational position to the world they're in. It's understanding that you are essentially an ATM to a group of people. That's a huge part of understanding this process.
Right. Yeah.
It's the way I like to think of it sometimes is we're too busy trying to get the ship down the estuary that we've forgotten to turn on the lighthouse. We need to know where we're going before we can go anywhere. And it touches onto something that Logo said earlier, where he was accusing me of just critiquing things, when no, I'm very aware of this. The idea is you need to have a destination in mind. You need to be wanting to construct something. You need to know where you're going. You need to have an idea of what that looks like. And you need to be brave enough and comfortable enough to say, I was raised within a liberal society. I've no clue, nor do I have the ability to know what this society looks like. The whole point is I'm going to be counter-hegemonic enough to create a generation that'll come after me that hopefully will have a better picture of it. The whole point is to progressively move forward, not in this incremental fucking electoral bullshit. The whole point is to be progressively moving, just like the concept of people themselves, into it. I'm actually channeling a Hegelian idea here, but I'm moving it towards an idealized idea of totality, where it's you have to exist as authentically as humanly possible, so that you can actually use your will to bring an idea into the world itself, so that the world can test that idea and then bring it back to you so you can just do that again. And then through doing this, you end up with you polish a diamond in a way where you get closer and closer to get woo-woo about it, it's closer to what our nature is. The longer we're alive, the better we know ourselves. And I mean that as us, as in the 100 and whatever thousand years of human evolution, the longer we're around, the better we learn to understand ourselves.
I don't think people understand what,
Individual people don't.
you know, like you're saying, it's about like living authentically, right? Not to like essentialize it down to that point like that. We don't even know how to do that anymore, and the internet is separating us from that even like more so. And that's what I look at all these cults, these little ARGs that people play. They just take all the authenticity out of the room, and they only give you this aesthetic RPG. You know, I'm not even so sure that I'm broken out of that. Right? I can sit here and think that I am. Probably not.
I would say the way forward is creative production, right? I think like, you know, what J-Reg's doing right below me, I think is some good stuff, because what it does is it portrays like a narrative of this sort of enmeshment or like psychosis in the internet. So it's creating like a drama which then people can like see, and it's like symbolic, it's representative of like their own experiences. I think that's like socialist art, or like what I call Republican art, like as William Blake did. I think that's how you actually change things, and this is what Christianity says as well, right? Because Christianity is about the word. Christianity is about the spirit. It is about the poetic. It is about revelations. It's not about creating arguments. You don't argue someone into this position. Like, you can do that, but ultimately, like, you're brought to in anything.
I'm pretty sure there are explicit verses actually saying you need to be prepared to answer questions and things like that. You know,
a moment of where you have to take the leap of faith, and you can't make someone do that. You can lead someone to the edge where they would have to make that leap, and they will decide for themselves if they want to make it or not. But you can't force them to. And the other thing I'd say is, like, whenever you're doing anything, understanding and construction are the same process. So, like, do I have like a perfect roadmap for how this would be accomplished? Absolutely not, because the roadmap would be constructed by the actual process of attempting to do it over, like, you know what I mean? You can't have like a preordained strategy. Like, what you have is a commitment to an end, and then you try to put that into place as like, what's his name down here? As he was saying earlier, right? Like, you have to. It's an iterative process. And so what that would mean, for instance, in America, would mean like run your own candidate for your local office. Take it over. If you fail the first time, see why you failed. Do a better job next time. Keep doing it. That's it. That's how everything works.
Yeah, just committing to a process. I like how you put that, and it goes back to the example that Dunzi metaphor he gave, is that you're trying to steer the ship. We don't lighthouse. Saying, no, let's
I've got the lighthouse, baby. I'm holding the light.
Let's look at where we want to go, and let's just keep pursuing it. Right?
Wait a minute.
You're not always going to know the exact process you're going to get there, but if you keep.
Have I misread? Is Logo Daedalus like some kind of like Christian apologist or something? Like, what is he? I don't get what the point is here.
Focus on steering this damn ship and not looking at the lighthouse. You're never gonna.
I would say one of the main problems is people have this apocalyptic sense that we're like living in the end of times, and that's definitely like one of the things that I think you should eliminate from your thought process, because that's actually like the justifying structure for what we have now. Where we're like, oh, global warming, climate change. Like, we only have X amount of years. Like, so time's running out. Like, we can't do those things. We have to do like.
J-Rig just leaves.
Right now, because time's running out. And if you're not going to do what's pragmatic right now, because time's running out, like through whatever perfidious means you have to, then then you're not realistic, right? So this is like what happens with all the Democrats and the pseudo leftists who are like, oh, we can't actually try to push to get universal health care in America, because if we did that, like, it might hurt our electoral chances next time, and then the Republicans will win. And better the devil I know than the devil I don't, or whatever. So this sort of like compromising, this sort of attempt to be pragmatic, is part of the problem itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's a phrase I have: if pragmatism doesn't get you anywhere, you aren't pragmatic, you're just vain.
Like,
yeah, it's narcissism. It's kind of rooted in the narcissism, right? Because it's kind of narcissistic to think of yourself as like the last generation or like the last witness to the earth or whatever. And you're like, oh, I don't have to care about like the future or like future generations because there won't be any. Like I am the last witness of the world, so I can do really whatever I want.
It gets to what Hobbes said literally about the privilege of absurdity. Does it really matter if you had the correct political option of like who's the better person to vote for? If the actual outcome itself is totally independent of anything good happening or even anything happening at all, why are we satisfied with the hypothetical? It's absurd. We live in the world, not our minds.
So far we've kind of identified that people might be radicalizing in the sense that they're smashing windows, they're attacking people in the streets, they're raiding Capitol buildings like it's a World of Warcraft group.
That was happening in the 70s too. That's what I'm saying.
Right. All this stuff's been happening, but in the sense, but no one in the sense is radicalizing in the sense that they're breaking out of this. As Logo puts it, the Dante in hell. I call it the political compass matrix. No one. So we've identified that people aren't radicalizing; they're just grouping up into aesthetic cults. Right?
They're torturing each other like demons do in hell. Like who's torturing each other in hell?
That's
it's themselves.
Right.
Like these people are and they like torturing each other. Like it's fun. Like they get off.
Sort of some BDSM.
Yeah, some demon.
It's really sick shit. Like it's really pretty disturbing.
Well, it is.
Really
you go on Twitter
it.
and you go on Twitter and you can just see it laid out bare for you. It's awful.
It's the spiritual animal kingdom.
Yeah. So we've identified that really they're not radicalizing in a true sense. They're just all trying to be the kings of hell. They're all trying to overthrow the big Satans.
Like Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X. That's what the music video is, right? Is like he takes out Satan and he becomes the king of hell. And
right.
That's you manifesting your individuality. Right?
Little Satan becomes big Satan. So they're not radicalizing. We've identified that if we were to truly radicalize, what it would mean is to break out of these identity categories, break out of these consumer identities, give up the narcissism, live more authentically, focus more on the process and less on the. You have to see the outcome. You have to have the outcome as an ideal, but you can't become so idealistic that you live in that outcome.
You have to live in it in your mind first.
Right.
Like that's what communism, the revolution happens in your mind. It's not even something that happens in material reality yet. It has to happen in the mind first. Because when you inhabit that revolution in thought, then you start manifesting it in reality. But at first, it has to be something.
No, that's wrong.
Your mind.
Yeah.
You're talking about having
Gramsci
it. You're talking kind of by having that framework like flowing through you. Like
Okay, so
Zenzi's.
You have to know that communism is inevitable and it is going to win.
Instead of having it as this like kind of ideal that you're just always dreaming of and hoping of.
That you're romantically fighting for it,
right.
And the best thing that could happen is for you to be tragically defeated, but to not compromised. And so then you can be like, well, I tried really hard, but we failed. And like that's the tragedy of this world is that the good can never be truly manifested.
But that's the inverse of it, right? That's that kind of toxic like inverse mirror image that just crap. Zan, you were gonna say something?
Just two things I want to point out. The first one is arguably the most key takeaway from Marx's thesis on Feuerbach is the idea that the inevitability of communism assumes humans actually fully take control of their agency as historical agents and actually become a material force themselves. In Hegel's Introduction to Critique of Hegel's Philosophy of Right, he makes the point of saying that weapon as a critique you should never forget that actual critique as weapon itself of being an actual weapon as a group of people themselves and imparting your ideological interpretation of the world upon the world itself so that you should actually change the world. That is the key point of one of his most famous phrases at the very end of Thesis on Feuerbach, and this is the idea that philosophers have thus far interpreted the world, points to change it. That is the point. Communism is inevitable if people change the world, which is why the point I get at is false consciousness is the most important part, because, and this is the point I want to get into, Gramsci lays out exactly what Logo was talking about in terms of you need to have a war for position and a war of maneuver, where what you first need to do is You need to identify the actual hegemony of your society itself, understand the social systems, understand the ways that the superstructure is imparted upon people's identities and how that then reinforces the base around you. You need to understand the way things are, and then you need to not be that. Once you've created a genuine proletarian culture, a proletarian counterculture, which would be trying to live authentically, you then engage in a war for maneuver, where what you do is you impose that will upon the state itself and break that hegemony, so that you can, in a way, exactly what Logan's done is you perform revolution, where what you do is you fundamentally change the relationship of classes to society. You have to do this both internally and externally, but the point is you can't do this individually. That is the key aspect. It needs to be a communal activity. And just the thing that I would say to suppose, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and communal meaning like not like, oh, me and my Discord server are changing reality by raiding this Twitch stream and writing the N word or whatever. Like that's not like, this isn't going to be a like internet movement. Like it'll be one that exists in reality. Like it's not going to be organized on the internet, is what I'm saying. Like,
the way I put it sometimes is the internet is not dissimilar from a bus. It's a great way of getting people together, but it doesn't actually talk to people.
Unless you're in the magic school bus. Actually, I don't know. I forget how that one worked. I assume there was a talking bus in there.
I encourage, I don't think this is what you're doing, but I encourage people not to dismiss the revolutionary potential of the internet itself, because it's the equivalent to what newspaper and radio has always been. It's a form of dissemination. It's like agitation propaganda takes place really effectively.
I think the only difference
but it's
now,
a part.
I think the only difference now with the internet as opposed to the printing press or any of those other technologies is people, they identify with the ecosystem of the internet as the, it has become like, as Baudelaire put it, the hyper reality.
Well, that's what happened with books. That's what happened with books. Because
how did that happen? Books don't hyperlink together and create little ecosystems.
Yeah, they do. That's what the Bible
they're
does.
called citations.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. You don't live in an ecosystem of books. You can't.
I do. I would love that. In fact, I kind of do. No, but like seriously, like we talk about like the canons, for instance, right? Like there is a link between Rousseau and Hobbes. What's the link? Well, they're in conversation. Well, at least one of them's in conversation with one of them. And we have like these clusters of like types of literature that are relevant to specific topics. Like you absolutely do have ecosystems of books.
And hop from book Discord server to book Discord. Or break it down for me.
You're in a community when you're reading a book. You're communing with the person who wrote the book and everyone else who's ever read the book. Like that is its own community, Oh. Like reading is not an antisocial or individual.
That's a bit far. I think you're interacting with things that someone has, like with you're interacting with things that someone has said in a certain capacity. That's fine, but you're not in communion with everybody who's read a book. That's a little bit woo-woo for me.
Individualist act. Like reading a book is a deep engagement with the spirit of mankind in its entirety.
Oh, stop with that.
Like, that's why being like so trapped in like a presentist mode of production, I guess, and like being only engaged with the internet content or something like that, you're never going to actually be able to understand.
Okay, you're not engaging with the spirit of mankind in its entirety by reading books. I'm sorry. It would be loverly if that was the case, but that's not what happens. You're engaging with, first of all, a very narrow community of people on Earth, insofar as you are engaging with community, and that's people who write books. Secondly, it's going to be like who's writing the book, where are they from, who have they interacted with. Like, for example, so many people have an impression of ancient Greek, like ancient Athens as being like super like sexually accepting, for instance, having no problem whatsoever with homosexuality, being like super open about stuff like that. That's specifically an elite attitude to sexual relations. The common folk were extremely hostile to that kind of thing. They were extremely conservative about a whole host of things. The reason why we think otherwise is because who do we read from ancient Athens? Well, people who wrote, people with leisure time, people with positions of influence, such that their books were preserved. Like we read Plato, we read Thucydides. People like can't speak anymore. Thucydides wasn't in Athens when he wrote, I don't think, but you get the point. Like these are not everymen, or these are not like ordinary people, and you aren't interacting with like the spirit of humankind when you're doing so. You're interacting with the relics of a tiny proportion of humankind.
And internet content, if you don't have the grounding of the rest.
President Sunday, will you ever touch on infrared shenanigans? I don't think infrared shenanigans stand in desperate need of my touching upon them. If it ever implicates something directly related to what I do, or if he does something outrageous, then I will. I think right now I'm just kind of baffled. It's a little bit silly, some of the stuff he's doing.
Of humanity, like, because what is all of this collection of like old books? That is the commons. Like that itself is like the library itself is like sort of a model for what communism is, because like that is the collection of all of the works of people in time becoming the collective ownership, like collectively owned by all of us. Like no one owns any of these old books because everyone does.
There's a phrase that I heard that I absolutely adore, and that is, what is inside your public library has brought down every dictatorship in history.
So what a way for me to conceptualize it is the internet's just added bandwidth. Would that be a way to think about it?
It's more lanes on the highway, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
It's just-
problem with
it's-
the internet is when we talk about the internet, it's not one medium, because the internet itself, like the ecosystem of the internet, has changed multiple times in my own lifetime, right? Like we could say like social media is like internet 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0,
Right,
whatever,
sure.
whatever .0 they're on. So all of these things work very differently. Like the media ecosystem of tons of small forums and like blog spots and whatever, like GeoCities pages, is a very different type of internet. I mean, even MySpace is a very different type of internet from what Facebook does. They function totally differently. And
I like how we're watching his stream and we have more viewers than he does. All that. Oh, I feel bad.
Your thought process. Like for instance, on MySpace, everything was customizable. Like everything on your page, like you could HTML code it in its entirety. It was sort of this notion.
Sprite or
that
wine? Neither. Perrier.
You owned it, and it was connected to other people's web pages. But that's not how it works once you get to like Facebook and things like that. What it is like you're taking out like
I'm not that much of an alcoholic.
basically in the phone book for yourself. And that's not really the same thing as like being able to design it in any way possible. You've now provided a specific rubric of where you list your likes and where your photos go and things like that. That wasn't the case with the early internet. The early internet was actually far more free, and it was far more of a medium for creative expression.
Oh, you didn't miss anything, Zanzi. It's just been the
what
same.
we're seeing right now actually is like the internet is
You had a nice quote about libraries.
Activism, or like the attempt to preserve the good in the internet, has totally failed because people who are devoted to the internet are totally distracted by like electoral blah 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 blah. Whereas right now, what are we seeing? We're seeing Twitch purposefully leaking their own code base or whatever. Facebook going down again, I think purposefully at the same time that they have one of their own employees going to 60 Minutes. Because what they want to do is they want to create like a compliance department for social media so that there won't be any challenges to the prevailing social media networks that already exist, because you'll have to be compliant to the new social media czar. And that's the goal. Is to
Look like champagne to me. I'm not sipping champagne on stream.
The digital commons that we once had in the glory days of piracy, where everything was on archive.org, that's gone already. That was taken away from it. I've been blowing the whistle on this for a long time, but no one really cares, because the only people who really care about that are people like me, who care about this stuff, right? Like, I'm the one who's impacted when I can't go to archive.org and read all the books that I want, because now they're artificially limited. Like, capitalism is actually imposing itself over the internet space in a way that didn't 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago in some respects. The internet is not becoming a domain for more freedom. It is becoming worse, and it is becoming more hellish, and it is because of capitalism and liberalism.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all old enough in the past. Pressing. So we've identified, like, where people are stuck at. We've identified, how you authentic break outside of that. Identified some of the but in terms of some of the ideological, leading people away from it, I don't know if you would. I think it's more of a narrative, breaking the narrative. And I think I like the way that you put it, Logo, and that's where my mindset has been late. Expressing that through art to get people out of sorts of mindsets that they're in now. And I do like that about your work, J-Reg, is that defining, like, kind of like putting a mirror up to the internet and defining it as like a schizo zone where nothing's real, and it doesn't matter if I go from Sonnen Rad, Naz Bowlery to Ann Prim, and then maybe I'll combine the two, and then I'll also become a cat boy. Like you've kind of like blurred all these things together.
Catboy Nazprim, that's a good one. Yeah.
Catboy Nazprim. Well, it does because because when you just start to jumble them all together, you kind of are like, I take this seriously? Does this mean anything? And I was just, I do kind of wonder when I watch your work how aware you are of that, but that project really is kind of breaking the hyper reality. It's like poking a hole in the matrix and be like, all just basically thing.
Like the key thing that what attracts me to JREG's work is because it's nonsensical. It's
right.
It's absurdist in its purity. I love it, and I think one of the things for me is I've no idea what you are, and I'm more comfortable that way because I'm fundamentally in my soul I'm an existentialist. When Sartre said that, or no, Sartre to use the French, that essence precedes existence, I fundamentally believe him, and I think I have to go and like.
Yeah, exactly. Faraday does kind of embody the brainless switching of ideologies, though. Yeah, like what was the video we just saw? He just came out as a conservative, but a conservative of sort, and then all he had to say was technology's bad. I don't get how Faraday's a conservative. Is it because he's talking about JREG? No, you missed. Faraday claims he's a conservative. Or he claimed he was a conservative in the last video we just saw. You're a bit late to the show. I have no idea what these people are talking about. I can. It sort of becomes clear when Zan's talking because Zan actually has some clarity of thought here. I have no idea what the hell Logo is
5
saying.
minutes, so I'll just try to wrap this up.
Oh, thank God, it's almost over.
One thing that I think JREG's work deprives people of, and that's meaning. And I actually think that's incredibly healthy because, Faraday, you asked the question earlier in terms of like that, like what led me down a rabbit hole, what took me on this like weird journey into like so many different places that eventually resulted in the deconstruction of your own mind. And it's literally just one word, and it's meaning. You were looking for something, and it gets at what I was saying earlier. One of the things that radicalization requires, it's to use a social class. There's what I consider a transitionary class. It's totally socialist, not economic. It's the idea that people between stages have a porous sense of identity where they don't quite know who they are, and those people are searching for meaning because it's uncomfortable to exist and not know why you exist. Like the quote that I leave you on is it's a Sartre quote where that freedom is realizing that you were born into a world that doesn't care about you, yet you're responsible and you didn't ask for that liability. Freedom is being aware that this sucks, so you look for meaning to make that bearable. For a long time we found that in religion, and this is where I get at the Nietzsche quote where what's often misunderstood is the whole God is dead and we have killed him. They forget the rest of that paragraph, which is essentially how we are now standing over the corpse of the thing we have killed, and we are totally absolving ourselves of the responsibility of taking on the liability of being responsible for our own meaning. We're looking for meaning in the world. That's fundamentally, I think, part of what this is, and it's something deprived to us. This is, for me, the great revelation Marx had, in that it's our society is purpose-built to keep people alienated because you're a more efficient worker if you don't feel plugged into your society. So you go, I said this on Twitter, and I think this perfectly sums this up. Hating BreadTube gives you the sense of community capitalism alienates you from. Fundamentally, we're just looking to belong. And like, if I was to ask you, what were you looking for? I don't think you could tell me, but the alt-right had an answer for you.
It all has an answer. And Zom, we'll just wrap up here, everybody together in just a couple minutes. It's all the same thing. It's like and that's why a big reason I had my mental breakdown like 6 months ago is when I popped out of that bread tube bubble, I was pissed. is I didn't just go. I've seen this happen to Peter Coffin and Angie Speaks, where they're now over here with Amy Therese, and they're all like just hating on the bread tubers, and now they've just become the inverse of the inverse, and it's like this like weird like, okay, you went from being Mario to Wario, great job, and now
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
Waluigi. Like
That's a
it's never gonna
well-trod
end.
trail.
Yeah.
That's a well-trod trail.
Yeah,
There's a key
Because
thing I want to point
the
into is like
neoconservatives are Trotskyites.
Right.
Like, no one talks about this, but that's
Right.
how the neocons exist. They're all ex-post-leftists who, like, that's where all the alt-right guys came from, too. Most of them were involved in, like, leftist or anarchist circles specifically. And it was when they specifically were, like when they started instituting, like, privilege checks and, like, this sort of thing, that, like, a lot of guys who were involved in Occupy Wall Street were the founders of Identity Europa. So that's all a continuity. Like, this isn't that strange at all.
Logo. Here's the thing. I wasn't being led by any sort of propaganda because I wasn't listening to Peter, Angie, or Therese or any of these post-leftists, right? But as soon as I popped out of the bread tube, DemSoc, whatever bubble, that is immediately where my mindset went. It immediately went to that post-left place. That wasn't a place that I was led to through watching videos or reading. My mind naturally fucking went that direction. It is literally, like as you describe, it's a predictable ideological pipeline and path.
Yeah,
And
that's why I'm saying like I like what you're doing down here, Irish guy with the Heineken cup thing. But I think you are still too plugged into basically the standard curricula of like the academia. So like, how much Hegel have you read? Probably not that much. You probably read more Marx than Hegel. How much of the Bible have you read? I doubt you probably read the entire thing. But you know,
I'm
Nietzsche,
Irish,
you
and
know,
you're asking me how Christian.
let's not get too down
I'm
this rabbit hole
sorry,
because we
that
have to
is the
hop
most
off here
ridiculous thing
because
I've ever
I
heard.
think the next
That's not what I asked. You're Catholic, so of course you don't read the Bible.
the next
What?
the next
Well,
three
what are
is
you,
going to
a
be a
Protestant?
debate between you two.
Catholics, what the hell is he talking about? Catholics have more Bible than Protestants do. Or what is maybe is Eastern Orthodox? I don't know. What was with this like sudden insane condescension? What's he got against? What the hell? I bet you don't even read books. You're Catholic. What the? Also, like, why would he be Catholic just because he's Irish? What the? What a freaking weirdo.
Have you read the Bible?
I've read a fair chunk of it.
The
Yeah.
whole thing? Have you read the whole thing?
God, no, nobody's read the whole thing.
I have.
What
Why
are you
can't
doing
you?
with your life?
I'm having a great time. I'm reading the greatest literature like ever written by anyone in the history of the cosmos. What are you doing? Reading Sartre?
No.
You plebeians with your plebeians with your Jean-Paul Sartre and your French existentialism and your Marx. I'm reading the Bible, you know, the thing. Oh, fucking hell. Christ, what a pretentious jackass.
We're gonna have to can this debate that's cropping up. You have to end, but I think that we.
What
we
are you
basically-
what are you smiling about? You look like a freaking douchebag. You probably only read Sartre, don't you? Like he mentioned Sartre once. Zanzi, by the way, I think he's like a chef, and he's not actually embedded in the university. He's just really fucking smart, and he reads and he tries. And one thing you'll notice in the course of this conversation, what little we've seen of it, when he spoke, there was clarity and structure in his statements. I still have no idea what Logo was getting at in half of this. And by the way, nobody who nobody who understands Hegel, especially Hegel in context, will say some asinine thing like I'm reading the best literature ever written in the history of the cosmos. I'm engaging with the spirit of humanity. Like, shut up. No, you're not. You're trying to look like a wizard on YouTube. Grow up.
laid out the groundwork of like where people are in terms of this radicalization. I don't know if anybody has a word that they'd rather like put in.
I thought Logo was a lefty because he was debating against Keith Woods and whatnot with Hawes, right? Or they were debating socialism, weren't they? I can't quite remember. I mean, the Bible has great literature in it. It's not the greatest literature known to man. It's probably like super important just because of, well, it's not. It is super important just because it's sort of like a literary nexus between so much. Like if you read Fanon, it behooves you to have some acquaintance with the Bible. The title of his book, "The Wretched of the Earth," literally comes from a verse. But like it's like what is it? Is it better literature than the Iliad or something? Is it better like I don't know what he's saying. The greatest literature known to man. Sartre was a fantastic writer, by the way. He unironically is into a cult too. I don't have any particular issue with that. That can be kind of fun, but like, is he taking it seriously? Because that's silly. What a like this is like Davis Arini tier. God, what a freaking weirdo. Have you watched the conversation Logo had with Haas? I haven't, but I kind of want to now. There is a difference. Like I think Haas is. I think he's reckless and he's sort of he's scrambling right now because I think he's kind of reaching a temporary peak and he's like, what do I do? And so he's picking fights with people because that's what he knows gets him attention. I never got the impression from him that he's like pretentious. I do get the impression that he's like pretty insecure. And I didn't think that for a while, but like little things were pointed out to me. But I get the overall impression though, that he's not like, it's not this. Like, give him that much credit. This is just embarrassing. Don Quixote is pretty great. I want to read Don Quixote, especially after watching like not just for that reason, but especially after watching The Expanse, because that takes a lot from Don Quixote. Like the main ship they're on is called the Rocinante, which is the name of, if I am not mistaken, Don Quixote's horse. But it's also like it's been read by a lot of really interesting people, so that would stand as a good reason to like Frantz Fanon, I believe, or not Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X, I think read Don Quixote in prison. This is just freaking weird.
In place of
Just psychosis.
psychosis.
You could, instead of calling it radicalization, you should just call it psychosis.
Yeah.
Let's call it
That's what it
based.
is.
How about
As
based?
long,
Wait,
as long as people understand it's a process and not an event.
Right. And so I think we've like pretty much laid out the groundwork of where we're at and where we need.
well, no, yeah, because it's psychosis is a state of it's a state of mental unhealth, right, or a specific state of mental unhealth. Radicalization, you can be perfectly mentally healthy and be radicalized. Like the point isn't your temperament or your perception of like the material in front. Well, I mean, it is that to a certain extent, but it's, it's not that you're not well. It's that you relate to your environment and to the institutions that form your environment in a way that challenges them, either as they are or that. Or even the fact that they are, or something. I don't know if that was phrased coherently, but ew! I just threw it in my mouth. That was gross. I'm so sorry, but I'm still recovering a little bit.
Go.
Probably edit that out. That
I
was
like
disgusting.
The work that you're doing, J-Reg, to kind of show that it's all a wild psychosis circus. Logo, you're doing good work to write on this, and Don, I appreciate your input too. Even if you read too in the Twitch politics.
I hate that space.
I
so
hate
much.
this. So yeah, does anybody have any does anybody have any closing thoughts they want to give, and then we'll go around and let y'all plug your stuff. No, we all feel good. Okay, so Don, do you want to plug any of your stuff or say anything?
Okay, we get it. Go check out Zanzi's channel though; it's very good. Wow. Okay. I wasn't even paying attention to Caleb in this one. Logo is something else. I tried talking to him too on Twitter briefly. I saw bits of this before. I haven't seen like the whole thing in sequence and how abrupt it was. I thought there'd be some kind of precedent for it, but this like what the hell was that? Let's go back and like see that quickly. I just want to.
Inverse of the.
But that's
Right.
how the neocons exist. They're all post
Hang on.
leftists
It's a predictable ideological place.
of like the academia. So like, how much Hegel have you read? Probably not that much. You probably read more Marx than Hegel. How much of the Bible have you read? I doubt you probably read the entire thing.
Like why what the hell is this? Where's this coming from? I doubt you've read the whole Bible. Like fuck off. I bet you've only read Hegel and you felt really proud of yourself for it. That's my guess, because nobody who actually learned people, competent scholars don't talk like this. They're aware of how difficult it was to get to where they are. They're aware of how tenuous their level of knowledge is, and they're concerned primarily with helping other people to learn. Nobody talks like this who's serious. This is a LARP. This is embarrassing. How old is he? He looks like he's 40. How old is this guy? Anyways, what a clown. What an absolute clown. That was J-Rig's job. You were supposed to be the clown, dude. Ugh. Why am I disliking this? Anyways. What are you... I'm just looking at the comments here. What are you reading, nerd? Sart? No. It was what Hawes does with the I'm the alpha male, but in literature. At least Hawes is built. Like, there is genuine muscle there. I'm not impressed by this. This is not... This is not what intelligence looks like in the real world. Logo likes to pretend he has read everything and got caught out recently. What did he get caught out on? I want to see this. What did he get caught out on? That's hilarious. I mean, nobody has read everything. Do you know how freaking long it takes to read Hegel? And just, by the way, that's if you're reading him badly. Just to read Hegel well, Hegel is extremely dense. When you finish reading Hegel, reading Kant, or reading someone like that, someone who's typically like a slog, it's like a knife through butter. That is how easy it is. Hegel is brutal. He's not nonsensical. He does make points that you need to work with, and he is worth the investment, but brutally difficult. A dumb person's idea of a smart person. Yeah, exactly. Wait. Yeah, Alex, what did Logo get caught out on? Can you, Academic Agent 2? Academic Agent does read. He's just very stupid. He does lie about reading some things, like he hasn't read Marx, he hasn't read Rousseau, like all these other people that he likes to diss on. But he has read a lot of the stuff that he relies upon. Has he read them well? I couldn't say. Like I think for a fact he's read Mises, he's read Hayek. He's definitely read Sowell. I think he's probably read more Sowell than anything else. But Noam Hessler says he lied that he read a non-existent book about Evola, wrote about Theosophy. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Is there a link to that, or was that on camera? I vaguely know what you're talking about. He lied that he read a non-existent book Evola wrote about Theosophy. I think I know what you're talking about. It was a book of Evola about Theosophy, but get this though, Evola actually has a book on Theosophy. It is called The Mask and Face of Contemporary Spiritualism, just was translated. Help me out. Where is the thing? Guys, you told me that there's a treasure somewhere. Now tell me where it is. Don't just leave me hanging here. It's what I just linked. You didn't link anything. You can't post. Okay, you can't post links into the chat. YouTube deletes them. Just tell me what the video is called. Do you know any books that explain Hegel well but more succinctly? No, but I do recommend, if you're new to Hegel. Oh, get out of there. The Cambridge edition of the Philosophy of Right has some excellent notes and some really good a really good introduction and like supplementary materials. Highly recommend this. Highly recommend this before, frankly, the Phenomenology of Spirit. There's a lot from the Phenomenology of Spirit that's simplified and made more clear in this, and you also get the direct relation to his politics much faster, as well as his like philosophy of history and things like that. Why would you lie about reading Evola? Did he lie about reading Evola, or did he read a thing by Evola on Theosophy and just make an assumption that that was the book? So after half review, what do you think of the Nietzschean Marxist claim? Wait, did he call... Oh, wait a minute. We'll have to talk about that tomorrow, Zanzi. I'm drawing a blank. Check Discord? Okay, we're going to check Discord. We're going to find this thing. Hang on a sec. And then we're going to call it for today, because I don't want to get more sick than I already am. Although I've been doing a lot better recently. It's kind of moved into my head. Like, I'm still stuffy, but I'm not like... I can breathe now, which is wonderful. We'll see if I still am after this. I've been talking nonstop. Okay, I'm on Discord. Oh, here we go. Okay, hang on a sec. All right, let's try this. Oh, why is that so... Hang on. Let's fix this quickly. There we go. Okay. So, Logo Daedalus asks, that's Arcam, was Evola a theosophist? God, the resolution's so bad. Landshark says, no, he literally has a book against theosophy, which you haven't even heard about. Arkham says, yes, I have read it. He opposes particular elements of quote-unquote other theosophists. So he can suggest that he is the one true theosophist. Every theosophist does this. You have not, because no such book actually exists. I invented it. Oh, you slippery devil. Well done. And as you said, like, he had a book on theosophy. Was the book critical of theosophists? Because if the book wasn't critical of theosophists, if he didn't say this, then this is actually just a full-blown lie. The thing on theosophy was translated like this year, so he was probably lying. Okay, so, but get this, Evola actually has a book on theosophy. It is called The Mask and Face of Contemporary Spirituals. Okay, so tell me about this book. Does it have any of the content that Logo was talking about here? Late to the party, do I want to watch his latest video? I thought you two were friends and that he seemed pretty cool. I don't have an issue with Faraday Speaks. We aren't particularly close. I think we've interacted like 3 or 4 times. He had a spat with the distributist in which he pointed out, and I was grateful for this, that I had actually, like, far from threatening him with doxing, I protected him and told him about who was doxing him so he could protect himself. But I don't know him that well. If he wants to chat about this, I'm happy to do so. But it does, at the end of the day, like, it doesn't save the video. It's a little bit nonsensical, and it looks kind of suspect, frankly. So I don't know what to say. Oh yeah, Dr. Gregory Sadler's half-hour Hegel series is fantastic if you want to understand Hegel. It's long though. He goes through literally every single passage, every single section of the phenomenology of spirit meticulously. So you'll know Hegel, or at least you'll have a very good understanding compared to the average person of Hegel by the end of it. But at least I speculate. I haven't gone through the whole thing. I've gone through a lot of them though. Like when I reach parts that seem difficult, I'll listen to Gregory Sadler while I'm working. And I find he's very clear. Clear without reducing it. He's like a genuine scholar. I love that guy. Yes, The Mask and Face of Contemporary Spiritualism came out in 2018, and no, he doesn't laud philosophy. Was one of his later works from the 70s IRC. Oh, so that's not that recent then. So it's possible that he... I don't know the content of this. That being said, is that a book against theosophy? I just want to investigate this a tiny bit more. Oh yeah. Yeah, right. So here I'll just make this separate. Here, hang on a sec. So this is so after the conversation with Zanzi and I guess there wasn't really a conversation with J-Rig at all. After the conversation with Zanzi and Faraday speaks, stupid Adobe. Here we go. There we are. Logo took to Twitter and said this of Zanzi. The other guy was a quote-unquote Nietzschean Marxist who didn't really get it, but that's how it goes. So Zanzi like cites different thinkers. He actually cites Hegel, by the way, in this. So the idea that he hasn't read Hegel is ridiculous. But the other guy was a Nietzschean Marxist who didn't really get it, but that's how it goes. This guy's just an asshat. Like he's actually just a flat-out bigot. Like, oh, you're Irish, so you're Catholic, so you haven't read the Bible because you're Catholic, and Catholics are dumb like that. Like, fuck off. Actually. Anyways, that's a wrap. I don't want to die, and I've got a stream tomorrow with Zanzi. We're going to talk about this some more. So, yeah. It's a book against many forms of esoteric spiritualism, apparently. He talks about Anton LaVey. That could be kind of interesting, actually. I'm not usually like an Evola I'm not fantastically interested in Evola generally, but that actually sounds like it'd be sort of fun to go through. I'm seeing $1,500 for this Evola. What? Hang on, let's $1,500 for Evola. What the hell? Let's see. Evola, The Mask and Face of Contemporary Spiritualism. Currently unavailable. You can't even buy it. Anyways. Oh, actually, hang on. Maybe it's, I'm on the Canadian Amazon. Maybe that's why. Do you mean Ebola, The Mask and Face of Contemporary Spiritualism? Books. Oh, here we go. Out of print, you can't get it. I'll have to check some used book sites. Anyways, that's a wrap, guys. Thanks for watching, and do take care. And join us tomorrow, because I will be chatting with Zanzi at about 1:30 p.m. PST, unless I'm dying, in which case it'll be bumped again. But hopefully we're there for that. So, yeah, thanks everybody, and take care.